This is the last Sunday of the year, and I am supposed to look at the year in review and look to the future. My review will be very short, and I will talk about the canoe trip, which was fun, the block party, which was successful, the chili dinner, which was amazing. We support two kids clubs, one at the elementary level and one in the junior high. We do a Wednesday night Bible study, and we had a float in the Christmas parade. I'm sure there are more things. You always miss things when you start developing a list, but these are all positives. I have a note here that I'm avoiding the obvious. Those of us who've gone through the last few months know it. Excuse me again. Know what that is, and those of you who didn't don't need to suffer through it with us. However, let's look forward, because Abraham operated on faith, which I read to you from Galatians 3, 6 through 9. He didn't have any law. He didn't have any traditions, except maybe oral traditions, because he was of the line of Seth. He did what he thought was best, and sometimes what he thought was best was really what was expedient. I'm sure most of us are aware that he fled to Egypt during a famine and said that his wife was his sister because he thought it would go better for him that way. But just the same, Abraham is the person who had the faith that we have all been blessed by. We are the sons and daughters of God because of the faith of Abraham. And he believed God, and we believe God. So, what does the future look like? Well, the future always looks the same every year. It's always hard and uncertain, and yet we're encouraged to move ahead. And I am going to go to Numbers chapter 13, which is the story of Moses sent 12 men into the promised land, one from each tribe, told them to go in and scout it out and come back and tell everybody what they found. And they did that. And if we go to chapter 13, verse 20, well, let's start at 25. When they returned from spying out the land at the end of 40 days, they proceeded to come to Moses and Aaron and to all the congregation of the sons of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. And they brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. Thus they told him and said, "We went into the land where you sent us, and it certainly does flow with milk and honey, and this is its fruit." And I have to tell you, they cut off a small vine of grapes, and the grapes were so big that two men had to carry it, on their shoulder. So it was a good land. Okay, this is its fruit. Nevertheless, the people who live in it, people who live in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there, giants. They saw giants. Amalek is living in the land of the Negev, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites are living in the hill country, and the Canaanites are living by the sea and by the side of the Jordan. Then Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, "We should by all means go up and take possession of it, for we will surely overcome it." But the men who had gone up with him said, "We are not able to go up against the people, for they are too strong for us." So they gave out to the sons of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, "The land through which we had gone in spying it out is a land that devours its inhabitants." And all the people whom we saw in it are men of great size. There also we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, or parts of the Nephilim, and we became like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so were we in their sight. So what's the point? I don't think they lied, but they certainly exaggerated. There may have been, well, we know there were giants there because we know later on David and Goliath. Goliath had two brothers and they were all giants. But they weren't all giants. And the land didn't eat its inhabitants, or else where would all of the fruit and the milk and the honey come from? So sometimes we look at the future and we get spooked because we exaggerate the bad parts. But Caleb and Joshua said, we should go up, we can do it, because they believed that God would deliver it unto them. Unfortunately, they didn't carry the day. So they exaggerated the difficulty and made it seem impossible. One of the things that the people said in response to that goes on into chapter 14. Would that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would that we had died in this wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and our little ones will become plunder. Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? Let us appoint a leader and return to Egypt. Now, do you think anybody of that mindset really believed that if they went back to Egypt, the people of Egypt would go, oh, look, the Hebrews have returned. Happy day. Let's, have a feast. Let's have a party. The Hebrews are back. The Hebrews are back. I don't think so. I think they're going to go, wait a minute, didn't we lose a whole army? Didn't we give them all our stuff when they left? Now they want to come back like nothing's changed. I mean, okay, my point is that the people who are saying this, let's go back to Egypt, everything was better in Egypt, they're not being realistic. They're being pessimistic, and they're being foolish. We can go back to Egypt. Well, you can't. Some great author whose name I forgot wrote a book, says you can't go home again. And on one sense, you can go home again. I can go back to Belvedere. You can all go back wherever you came from. But it's not the same because time has moved on. And number one, it's never as great as you thought, as you remembered it was. But number two, things just change. So you can physically go home again, but you can never return to the circumstances that you left. So what does God call us to do? I think God calls us to move forward. And what does that look like? Well, I think this whole church chronological Bible study is a way of moving forward. And again, I encourage everyone to participate. There is something powerful in everybody being on the same page, you might say. You don't even have to say on the same page, because we will be on the same page, because we'll be reading the same Bible. And I think that's important, so I'm going to stress that fairly constantly whenever I get a chance. The other thing that moving forward looks like, let's see how good I was at marking my spots here. The danger of the amateur preacher. Oh, look at me. And we all know this one. Okay, it's Hebrews 10, 19 through 25. But it's one of my favorites. Okay, 19 through 25. Therefore, brethren, since we have confidence to enter the holy place by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way, which he inaugurated for us through the veil, that is, his flesh, and since we have a great priest over the house of God, let us draw near with a sincere heart in full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled clean from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water. Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds, not forsaking our own assembling together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you all the more as you see the day drawing near. Keep meeting together. Keep meeting together here. Keep meeting together in your small groups. Keep meeting together as friends in social situations. Keep meeting together. Another way we can move forward is to continue to support the various ministries that this church does support. I think we support 10 missionaries or so, and then we support Kids Club at a couple different levels, and outreach to the outside is very important. The other way we can move forward, and you're probably going to get tired of my saying this, I hope so, or I hope not. It's important to focus on witnessing to the unchurched and to the unsaved. And once again, I just love the story of the woman in the crowd who reached out to Jesus and touched the hem of his garment, because she was an incidental or accidental connection. Sometimes we get put in situations that we did not plan, that are opportunities to witness, or maybe just opportunities to love even. And I think they're crucial. I think being aware of them is crucial, to recognize them when they happen and take advantage of them. I'm not saying you have to deliver the whole Roman road every time you meet somebody who seems open to the concept, but little bits of little bits of scripture, little bits of sharing, but mostly to be aware and to be ready, because I will remind you that, as Adrian Rogers told me, not personally, but we're called to be witnesses, not lawyers. Mark says we're sent to preach. Matthew says we're sent to make disciples. John says we're sent to testify. And the book of Acts, once again, tells us that we're supposed to be witnesses. I can't remember if I can get this right, but if we admit what we don't know, when we tell people what we do know, they're more inclined to believe us. So that's the whole thing about witnessing. You tell people what you do know from your own experience. Personal experience, I think, is a greater connection than a long list of scriptures. We'll get them the scriptures later. First, we have to get them here. So that's my last. Actually, watch for close encounters of an accidental kind, which I didn't. It's sort of a slightly twisted metaphor. I got curious as to, in the old movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, what the close encounters involved, and it was a close encounter with a physical close encounter with an alien being. Doesn't quite apply here. Jesus is not an alien being. In fact, Jesus is our friend. But watch for close encounters with other people to introduce them to Jesus. That's the close encounter I'm looking for. And so, moving into the future, I think actually next week Blake will have a little more to say about that. What can we do? We move forward. Move forward with the Bible. Move forward with fellowshipping. Move forward with ministry support. Move forward with witnessing, both to the unchurched and the unsaved. And that should fill up a whole year.